Throughout the history of the U.S. military, few weapons have left a mark as deep as the M60. It was more than just a machine gun. It became a symbol of an era, the unmistakable sound that echoed through smoke and fire. Where every burst carried the heartbeat of the soldier behind it. The M60 wasn't born in a sterile laboratory, but forged in the crucible of combat where every round could decide the fate of an entire squad. It was built to carry faith to punch through jungle canopies' fog and fear itself. In the classic World War II documentaries, we don't just see a gun firing, we see a generation fighting for their comrades, driven by the belief that they were protecting what was right. Today, let's turn back those pages of history, where the M60 wasn't merely a weapon, but a witness to courage, to human limits in war, and to the eternal question, what truly defines strength on the battlefield? After World War II, the U.S. Army looked back at its arsenal and realized a harsh truth: it was using too many different weapons. Thompson-Garand M1 carbine, Bar M1919, each demanded its own ammo, its own parts, its own training. Meanwhile, the Germans had already shown what efficiency looked like with the MG34 and MG42 guns that could serve every purpose from defense to offense, from the trenches to armored vehicles. They fired fast-changed barrels in seconds and ran flawlessly in almost any condition. Looking at that, the Americans understood they hadn't just fallen behind in technology, but in organization. A single gun that could replace 5, that was the future of modern warfare. Out of that realization grew the demand for a flexible, powerful, and reliable weapon that could do it all. From blueprints to prototypes, and finally to the brutal testing grounds of war, a new name began to emerge. The weapon that would redefine how Americans fought in a new era. 4. Inspired by two legends of the European battlefield, the MG42 with its devastating rate of fire, and the compact FG42 of the German paratroopers, American engineers set out to create a new machine gun with a soul of its own. They didn't copy, they distilled the best ideas and fused them with bold American innovation. The result was the M60 the Pig, a gun soldiers would both love and fear. It was meant to replace everything before it: the Bar, the M1919, even the water-cooled M1917, giving the infantry a single weapon that could handle every role, lighter, deadlier, and tough enough to survive hell itself. The image of soldiers hauling the M60 over their shoulders, sweat dripping onto its glowing barrel, became a symbol of strength and resolve.
Then in the late 1930s, Germany introduced a new icon, the MG34, the world's first so-called general-purpose machine gun.
And from that moment, the pig roared its way into history, its metallic thunder defining a generation of warriors. Ironically, the M60 didn't debut on the battlefields of Europe as its designers once imagined, but in the dense jungles of Vietnam, where all its flaws were brutally exposed. Even in testing, it had averaged a jam every 2,000 rounds, a statistic brushed aside until the realities of combat proved otherwise. In the mud, heat, and humidity of Vietnam, pulling the trigger wasn't just an act of fire. It was a gamble with one's life. And yet, amid that chaos, soldiers still trusted the M60. They knew its weaknesses, but they also knew that when it roared, the jungle fell silent. That sound, heavy, fierce, and alive with the soul of the gunner, was the sound of both power and survival. Though criticized for weighing over 20 pounds and notorious for jamming at the worst possible moments, the M60 remained a leap forward for its time. It was lighter than the M1919, far more mobile, and carried enough firepower to make any enemy think twice. In a soldier's hands, it was not just a tool of war, it was a symbol of evolution, proof of how human experience, even soaked in blood, could be turned into progress. Because in the end, the story of the pig isn't really about steel bullets or mechanics. It's about human resilience amid chaos, the determination to stand firm when everything around you is falling apart. The M60 embodies that spirit, the kind of strength that doesn't come from metal, but from the hands that gripped it, from the unyielding eyes of those who believed that no matter how brutal the war, they would find their way home.
The miracle lay in the Tiefenfeuer automat, an automatic sweeping mechanism. The soldier could preset range and sweep.
The miracle lay in the Tiefenfeuer automat, an automatic sweeping mechanism. The soldier could preset range and sweep angle.
In defensive engagements, the lefty allowed the Germans to fire with such precision that they didn't need to see the target.
That sound was both a warning to the enemy and a comfort to his comrades, because as long as the M60 roared, there was still hope. The image of a soldier gripping his weapon as if it were part of his own body became an immortal symbol of courage. They knew that with one pull of the trigger, a wall of fire would shield their squad. But they also understood that those same thunderous bursts made them the first targets. Every round fired was a gamble between life and death. And that's why, despite the exhaustion, the ringing ears, and the aching shoulders, the M60 was respected, because it wasn't just a weapon, it was the soul of the soldier amidst the storm of battle. You could mount the M60 on a bipod or tripod, but soldiers quickly learned that mobility ruled the fight. They practiced shooting on the move, firing from the hip using quick fluid motions that looked like something out of a movie, not for show, but for survival. The M60 rested on the gunner's shoulder like a reservoir of power, lighter than the Browning M1919, yet far deadlier. It reshaped how patrols moved and how ambushes unfolded. When it arrived in Vietnam, everything changed: formations, reaction times, even the rhythm of covering fire. The gunner carried more than just a weapon. He carried the fate of his squad. Once the enemy spotted that distinctive burst, every hostile rifle zeroed in on him. How he used the M60, when to fire, when to fall back, how to coordinate and protect, often meant the difference between life and death. It was a simple but eternal truth: a good weapon only matters in the hands of someone fast, smart, and adaptable. The M60 gunner was the heartbeat of every squad, the one who fired first when the fight broke out. The 7.62mm rounds ripped through thick jungle canopies, forcing the enemy to the ground. But being the spearhead of firepower came with a deadly price. They were always the first to be hunted. In the jungles of Vietnam, everyone knew: take out the M60, and you cut out the heart of the team. The M60 devoured ammunition at a fearsome rate of 600 rounds per minute. A single 100-round belt weighed nearly 7 pounds, so the entire squad had to share the burden, carrying thousands of rounds along with rifles, food, and water through the stifling tropical heat. Every step was a test of strength and endurance, yet soldiers adapted with ingenuity. They stuffed belts into claymore bags, built makeshift frames from radio packs, even scavenged shoot guides from downed helicopters to create ammo backpacks, letting the gunner fire continuously and build an impenetrable wall of lead. But the M60 was no perfect machine. In the humidity and mud, it jammed easily, or worse, could run away, firing uncontrollably when the trigger mechanism wore down. At those moments, the whole team risked disaster. Swapping out a red-hot barrel mid-battle required more than courage. It demanded sheer grit.
In the same time, they could produce twice as many, and that is precisely why this gun was born to endure.
The M60 didn't just rule the ground. It was mounted on tanks, trucks, patrol boats, and especially helicopters, where it evolved into the M60D with a spade-grip spiderweb sights and an even higher rate of fire. From Huey crews cutting through the skies to PBR boats racing down the Mekong, the M60's thunder became the soundtrack of that era. the sound of dominance and of fear. Through the smoke and the whirling rotors, the M60 became an icon of its age, a weapon soldiers both loved and feared. Behind every deafening burst was the image of young men fighting with belief, fear, and resilience, battling to their last breath in the jungles of Vietnam. In the end, time forced the M60 to yield to a new generation, the FN MAG, or M240, in U.S. service. Heavier, yes, but steadier and far more reliable. The M60 was more than a gun. It was the emblem of an era when man and machine merged into history, leaving behind an echo of cold steel in the jungle, where every bullet whispered the same truth: no glory comes without a price. War always reveals both sides of humanity, the power to destroy and the will to endure. The M60 embodied that uneasy bond between man and technology. It showed that no matter how powerful the weapon, victory still depends on the human spirit, on patience, courage, and the ability to adapt amid imperfection. From the misty jungles of Vietnam to the echoes of modern war documentaries, its lesson endures: no weapon is invincible, only those who refuse to give up. And for later generations looking back, it's not just the roar of gunfire they remember, but the image of a soldier cleaning his weapon in the rain, keeping every round ready as if guarding his comrades' lives. A reminder that war is written not only in steel and gunpowder, but in loyalty, sacrifice, and faith, things that never rust with time.